Welcome to the Rude Dog Show. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I certainly appreciate it. I am Rudy Reyes. This is the RudeDogShow.com. Thank you very much for tuning in. I won't be here that long, so please bear with me. Tonight's game was a little tumultuous for the Miami Heat, losing 109-94 in Game 3 at home. It was kind of embarrassing when you think about it. Nuggets scored 24 in the first, 29 in the second, 29 in the third, 27 points in the fourth quarter to make it 109-94. The Heat struggled from the second quarter basically onwards, scoring 24 in the second, 20 in the third, and 26 in the fourth. They were very close to winning their first home game of this NBA Finals. Unfortunately, they found themselves in a really deep hole in various ways. They couldn't capitalize from three. There were a lot of missed shots, missed opportunities. They were only 37% from the field. The Nuggets were spot on, 51.3. And needless to say, nobody picked the Nuggets to win this game, but I did. And I knew they were going to make the corrections. I knew you were going to see Jamal Murray show up the way that he did, had an outstanding game all unto himself. And Nikola Jokic just certainly dialing it up inside of the paint, outside of the paint. I mean, he has, and I've mentioned this before, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but he has the touch. He has the feel. He has the dynamics of what it takes to be one of the best centers in NBA history. As a matter of fact, he has scored more triple-doubles than Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with 3. Each one of those Hall of Famers had 1 apiece. So it almost looks like Jokic is the difference maker, at least in this series. And to be quite honest with you, he's been the difference maker across the board in every single game they've played this season, especially when you're talking about postseason, especially against the Lakers. Very outmatched in relation to what he does inside of the paint. Just, again, it's about the touch. It's about the feel. It's about what he's done on the perimeter, as well as just be that go-to guy, the willing passer, the willing shooter, the one that just doesn't give up points a whole lot. We did see a little bit different flavor and style from Nikola Jokic, especially in the paint in Game 2. But Game 3, he just came alive. And I look at this game. It was relatively, earlier on in the first quarter, it was relatively matched. They were much better from the line, going 22 for 27, 3-pointers, 5 for 18 from the field, which is okay. Not to suggest that the Miami Heat didn't do that much better, because he did. They shot much better, 11 for 34 at 32%. So again, it almost pairs off to where you would think that the Miami Heat would actually have a chance to win this game at home. And they certainly had the opportunity to do so early and often. There were some doubles, some team-ups against Jokic, especially in the paint, but he knew that was going to happen. So he predicated that by saying, you know what, let me find Christian Brown. Let me find Jamal Murray on the perimeter. Let me find Aaron Gordon, who's driving to the paint for a slam. Let's just get this out of my hands, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's really about winning the game as a unit and not just me having a great game. Because those are two very different things, different mentalities, and they have the propensity of basically biting you in the behind. And that's not certainly what had gotten the Nuggets to this point, winning Game 3 in Miami against the Heat team that frankly just wasn't ready. They didn't appear to be ready. They didn't appear to be inside of the paint to be able to block off those perimeter shots by the Denver Nuggets. Duncan Robinson had 13 minutes, 1 point. Kyle Lowry, 3 rebounds with 9 points. I mean, everybody had relatively minuscule game. Even Jimmy Butler at his absolute best had 28 points in this game. So it wasn't as if he didn't do anything, but you just had no supporting cast whatsoever. And Highsmith didn't get a look. Cody Zeller didn't do much of anything at all. So this matchup between Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic certainly has the 1-2 combo. And of course, I'm not going to compare Kobe Bryant and the great Shaquille O'Neal to both of these guys, but certainly in their heyday, both Shaq and Kobe were extremely dominant. They were the 1-2 punch for the Lakers. Inside of the paint, outside of the paint, you expected Shaq to slam dunk it at every given opportunity, and he did early and often. Kobe Bryant leading the offense, the late, great Kobe Bryant, may you rest in peace. Just one of those show-stopping guys. It reminds me of a very young Michael Jordan esque and an early LeBron James-esque player as well. But these guys are just absolutely outstanding. I mean, outstanding. Looking at their game style, looking at their flow, they trust one another. You can see it on the court. It's nothing that they haven't done all season long. I mean, and then, again, going back to Aaron Gordon, had 11 points, KCP with 6, Michael Porter Jr. with 2, didn't have a fantastic night whatsoever. I was looking for a little bit more three-point shooting that actually ended up going inside of the iron for Michael Porter. It didn't quite work out that way. Bruce Brown had 5. And Christian Braun, Braun, not Brown, 15 points from Christian. It's almost as if he took over the game. And in his early NBA career, he's certainly making a name for himself, and he still has a few years left on his contract in the Mile High City. There's a lot of things to like about Christian Braun moving forward, his gameplay, his game style. He's compared to just so many different players, but certainly I think in the offseason, whether or not the Denver Nuggets can win the Larry O'Brien Trophy, to win these NBA Finals remains to be seen. There's still plenty of basketball to be had, plenty of basketball to be played. They still have to go back to Denver. Miami just needs to reset, go over some film for probably the next day at least, because they're going to have a game on Friday. So they have a day in between games, whereas they had 2 days off between game 2 and game 3 in Miami. And that's get acclimated in flight time. And of course, get some practices in and so on. But there's just, again, a lot of things to like from Jamal Murray. Both had 32 points between him and Jokic. Jokic. It's just amazing how these guys have been able to play so well. It's a well-oiled machine between the two of them. But I think more importantly, this is about team dynamics. Coach Malone has been doing this all season long. He wasn't afraid of going against the LA Lakers, even though I believe nobody really wanted to play the Lakers during the regular season or even after playing. They're a very dangerous team, but it turned out to be a very one-dimensional matchup against the Lakers when you had, the oldest guy on the court certainly trying to do everything he possibly can to try to will themselves to get into these NBA Finals and knock out the Denver Nuggets. Unfortunately, that was not meant to be. Clearly, Denver Nuggets are number 1 heading into postseason play. They're certainly playing like the number 1 team. Miami with their 6 undrafted players. Okay, great. It's good for now. It's a wonderful narrative. If they end up winning it all, it's something to really look forward to from a franchise standpoint, franchise building perspective. And what do they do with those guys? Do they offer them big-time money? If for some reason they don't win, whether they win or not, I don't believe any one of those guys who were undrafted players will find themselves without fantastic contracts heading into the offseason. So, again, one of those things you have to look out for the Miami Heat in Game 4 as it stays in Miami, and then it will head back to Denver. They're just going to have to reset. They're going to have to get Bam Adebayo inside much more frequently, use a pick and roll much more effectively, and just get that 1-2 punch going of their own. They've done it. They're scrappy. I don't think Miami was ready to play, whereas the Denver Nuggets, knowing that this is a very pivotal Game 3, certainly found themselves, basically knocking themselves in the teeth, wondering, well, how did we get to this point? How did we arrive here? Who are we? What is our identity? Where do we see ourselves in the next, 2 to 3 years as we have all this firepower for the Denver Nuggets? Well, again, plenty of basketball to be played. I wanted to come on and share my post-game thoughts. I still believe the Denver Nuggets are just the better team, and not just because they're ranked number 1, but because they've been able to do it so frequently, so often. I mean, 44 defensive rebounds, 13 offensive rebounds, 57 total rebounds, because they know how to get to the glass. They know how to get the ball. Sharing is caring. Passing the ball to the willing shooter, that's exactly what you need to do if you are the Denver Nuggets trying to win a Larry O'Brien Trophy. Anyway, Friday will be another show. It's going to be another post-game conversation. And feel free to throw me a follow on Twitter at Rudy Reyes. go to my social media accounts. You can follow me, Rudy Reyes on IG. You can find me on TikTok at The Rude Dog Show, and on LinkedIn, you name it. Check it out. Go to YouTube. Subscribe to that channel because I certainly love it and I appreciate the love there. Subscribe to it. I have, hundreds of videos ranging from interviews to NFL Combine, player interviews. I mean, the world is your oyster. All you have to do is subscribe and check it out. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. This is Rudy Reyes on the RudeDogShow.com, Sideline Sports Network. Just look at the ticker below and give them a shout out. Thank you so much. Have a great night.